Hi. Quick reminder. The opinions and views expressed by my guests in this episode don't necessarily reflect mine or those of the show. Not every episode, but some episodes this season, we talk about very deep, serious subjects. So if at any point you need to take a pause from listening or watching, please do so. Your mental well-being is far more important to me than any listener metrics. And the show will always be here when you're ready to come back. All right? Let's go. Hi, I'm Adam Jennings, and this is Awaiting Approval, the globally charting design podcast about the messy human side of creative leadership. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by the man, the myth, the legend, David Martin, founder and president of Fantasy Interactive, for a relaxed, two-way conversation about his journey, the lessons he's learned, and what it takes to lead with creativity and honesty. David, hi, welcome to the show.
Well, hello, Adam. After all those technical glitches, we are finally here.
Yeah.
2026.
For those listening, we have spent the last, 7.5 days trying to get the tech working. I'm exaggerating slightly, but to get to this point. So I'm pleased that we now have video and sound and we can jump into it.
Although not super HD in my end, but anyway, it's the way it is.
No, yeah, we'll get there. Like you say, we'll do a part 2 when we figure it out. And
when I buy a new computer and I'm not stuck on this old laptop, with a 720p camera.
So if we were meeting in person today, where would you suggest we meet and what would you order to drink?
Oh, golly. Probably at my house, because it's more personal. And to drink, it'd be probably something like tea or coffee or something like that. The setting would be more about, the reason the house to make some people feel it's personal. And if you just meet out in a coffee shop, sometimes it feels like, well, you're out in a coffee shop. Sure, it's fine, or a hotel lobby. A high-end hotel lobby is nice, but when you can bring someone to your home, it just feels you can open more doors,
There's a nice hospitality aspect to that. Well, I'll raise a metaphorical cup of tea to cheer you on for the rest of this recording. When you think about your desk space, this is for people to get to know a little bit more about you. Is there something that's always there with you that is a little glimpse into who you are or how you work?
Yeah, a mess.
Right.
There's nothing always there. I'm the kind of person that I like to be super creative and get things done when things are super clean. And for me, when I wanted to be productive and really kind of get into the space, when I was younger in my bedroom, I would take everything off the floor, put it on the bed. So my room was instantly clean. Within 1 minute, spotless, right? Or I just throw everything into the wardrobe and close the doors. So, but that was a way to get me in the zone. So same with a desk setup or whatever it may be. It could be even stuff on your desktop. If I want to get into a project, I don't like all this cluttered mess on the screen. I would just literally grab all the icons and stuff, screenshots, stuff I've saved, throw them in the folder. So I feel, I've got a blank canvas now. I don't like the clutter. It also makes me feel that I kind of ignore the laziness in me that I was to make it be disorganized in the first place, if that makes sense.
Do you think that sort of drive to tidy everything up and have everything just so has kind of filtered into your design work, into the aesthetic?
Yeah, maybe it has, but it's also maybe a mental subliminal way of like running away from the fact that I can't acknowledge that sometimes I'm too lazy to be more organized, and I procrastinate maybe too much of these little things that don't feed my ADHD. So I get bored. So maybe I'm running away from something. I don't know.
I mean, I know when we've spoken in the past, we both shared that we're full ADHDers, and that idea of putting something off. Well, there's kind of 2 types of ADHD procrastination, right? There's the procrastination that we know we're doing, and there's the procrastination that just happens that we cannot shift forward. We can't kickstart something forward. And so there's a sort of difference between those 2. But I get what you're saying about wanting to run away from acknowledging something, or maybe it's a piece of work that feels like overwhelming, feels like it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, especially if it's something I don't want to do, like anything to do with paperwork, right? Something that doesn't feel like my brain can like mentally engage and be super creative. I tend to kind of leave everything to the last minute, right? And so, yeah, maybe there's multiple types of, procrastination for sure. And, I'm, what am I, 48 now? So my son, who is 11, has ADHD. And I can definitely see a lot of him and his difficulties in dealing with, boredom in me. And sometimes as parents, we tend to, over worry about those things. And sometimes it's just being a kid. It's not ADHD. So I've been teaching him all this time to turn it into a superpower, right? But it's still when getting him to do basic stuff like homework and things around the house and trying to get him to be more disciplined as a child. Where discipline, it's a whole other topic, doesn't really play the same role as it did when we were kids. And that's a shame because sometimes kids get away with murder these days, right? But when I want them to get things done and I come up against this ADHD stuff, um, I can see the difficulties, right? And so I use what I've kind of learned over the years and when I was a kid and how I struggled with my parents to do anything. Now I'm rambling. That will tell you how my ADHD. I'm going from one topic to another. But anyway, that's part of it. That's what we'll do over a coffee in a coffee shop, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole purpose of
Yeah.
awaiting approval. I like it's billed as a design podcast, but it's not really about design. It's about humans. So
Right. Two boys
you know,
talking.
yeah, yeah. So when you think about that, that sort of uh, how ADHD affects us, obviously in different ways for everybody, but generally that idea of being able to focus on a task that we're not really that invested in. Do you think tech is helping us right now with that, or do you think tech is getting in the way?
No, tech is obviously just distractions. I mean, I know the big word of AI was going to play a massive role in the future when it comes to helping kids focus, right? So what I'm a huge proponent of is I don't believe education is makes any sense the way it's been set up, the way I did it, the way you did it, the way our kids do it, where they're all in school. So, the average human brain can only, especially a kid's brain, can only learn 2 to 3 hours a day before that sponge stops working. And they really need to be out there in the nature doing everything else. And you see that in Scandinavia, a place like Finland, where for years they've been doing that kind of stuff, right? Now, my son, who's 11, Maverick, he is no longer in school. We're homeschooling him. And we have a tutor that comes in and does 2, 3 hours a day tops, right? Because that's what I believe. He's a much happier person. I've noticed when he's at home doing quality over quantity teaching, where it's a lot more focused. And the state of Arizona where we live gives you a grant towards tutoring, which is great. Now, what does he do with the rest of the time? And how does he handle tasks that are mundane, right? And how do we all handle these tasks that are mundane? So I think, for example, AI tools, which they're not really there yet, is helping kids learn. So, for example, not everyone's going to be able to afford a tutor. So imagine that at home, you can choose to have an AI teacher, taking 2, 3 hours a day with your child. And that AI is able to completely adapt. They can sense boredom. They can sense the ADHD struggles. They can sense okay, where do we need to implement and adapt and pivot to make this activity a lot more interesting and engaging? So it's not the standard rule and rolling out way to teach in education. So, for example, when I grew up, the only subject that I loved was geography because it wasn't because of geography, it was because my teacher was so passionate about it. It wasn't just the standard open a book, turn to page this, on board, let's do it, kids, let's go. There was energy, there was passion. And that is something that I engage with. And then typically kids and people that have ADHD, they gravitate to something that's more intense. So anyone that has passion, that's something they can hang on to, no matter what the topic is, if it's math, biology, or geography in my case. So, my kids will definitely be utilizing that technology to help them really wrap their head around something that maybe is boring to learn, which is, let's be honest, almost everything can be boring to learn for kids. And you don't really understand how interesting it can be until you're, honestly, in my condition, until I was in my late 40s, right? And now I'm actually interested to go back and learn things I never wanted to learn before, like history, which I never believed in. That's a whole other conversation. But the point is that technology today does not really I believe help. It's just more of a distraction. It's not refined yet. AI is way overrated for what it can do. Um, except if you're a college kid trying to obviously write your essays and do X, Y, and Z, right? But for children that are in the 6 to, let's say, 12-year-old range, right, we're not there. I know Fantasy's been working with, folks like Harvard and others over the years to help refine what those AI teaching platforms will be. But right now, we're not there.
Mm. I love what you're saying about your geography teacher and the passion they have, because like sort of going from school all the way through into work, or it might be a boss or it might be a mentor, when they have that passion, that becomes infectious and really energizes you to then go on and do better and grow and work on yourself or work on your skills or what have you.
Hmm.
Was that the case for you? Like as you came into your career, did you find going from that geography teacher who had the passion, did you find mentors that had the passion?
I know I didn't. There was no mentor, so to speak, in work. For me, it was more just the people that were around me that worked. I remember when we worked together, Adam, when you were at Fantasy, just even to how you would present yourself, right? There's little things like that where when I find people do something really well, right, I try to gravitate towards those little things that they bring to the table and surround those me with those things, right? Think of them as almost weapons.
Mm.
And I remember when I first met you, we met online, doing Zoom interviews or Google Hangouts or whatever we did back then. And I mean, if you remember, I really was very honest with you and open with you how I resonated with how you can present yourself, right? And you know, that is one of the most essential things for any human being, for a child, more than anything, more than them learning, basic stuff. It's very important how they present themselves. So, for example, when we're at a restaurant, I will have my son order for me or for us, right? Um, so he understands manners. He understands how to be front and center and take responsibility for sorting out whatever is going on, and helping the person taking the order feel they're with a good company and a good table, and, things are well organized. And I think when you adopt or bring yourself around those skill sets versus mentorship, um, I think that's almost more important, right?
Wow.
And those things can help guide you, fuel you, and give you that passion, more so than having to have a uh, almost a biblical character to follow.
Mm. I like that. I really do. And I remember with much fondness, our conversations when we worked together. And I do remember the first time that we spoke, and I really appreciated it because um, you were very honest with me in terms of where my experience design portfolio was and
Yeah.
how that wasn't quite where it needed to be, but that you saw something and wanted to see if there was a tester project for us to work on.
Hmm.
Um, and I so appreciated those two things. One was your honesty, and two was the ability to say, "But let's try something. Like let's see how we can make that work."
Yeah.
And I will always be grateful for that. Thank
You,
you.
you know why? You know why we did that, right? Because, you know, most of the time people don't have the opportunity to have phenomenal portfolios. They got to be really lucky. They get one project that's maybe amazing, then they get more and more, but not always. Most people don't get those opportunities. So sometimes it doesn't take raw skill, raw talent. What it takes is just opportunities, right? And how then you react to those opportunities. And you have to have, of course, a baseline of confidence, right? But it's in what can you do with that in the right ecosystem that allows you to push and drive, right? So if you go to work any big company, sometimes it's like you got to come in, you got to do your job, and there's some innovation and so forth. But when you surround yourself with people that are just bred to be innovative, and that's their job and that requirement, you tend to get yourself in situations where you have to push beyond what you think you've ever done, and to do that with other people is the most insane, amazing experience of working. Right, we're a team really trying to kind of solve the crisis and deliver something beyond that. Everyone's like, "Holy shit, this is amazing." All I needed was to know that you had just the personality and the fit and the attitude that you can do it. And if you're given some tools and shown some things, can you adapt? And if you can, great. If you can't, what other avenues can we take that weaponry that is that impression that Adam Jennings gives that I really liked, and how do I apply that into fantasy in a positive way? So that's, you know, it's all, one is about the opportunities, and then two, it's about then how you apply yourself, right? You've got to be a bit of an animal to some extent. But yeah, the good people find a way to adapt and fit in with other great people.
Mm. Yeah, someone once said to me, an ex animator from Disney who's been a guest on the show, he encouraged me to start drawing again, to start illustrating
Okay.
again.
Yeah, I remember.
And I shared a few with him, and he gave me some notes on it, which is another incredible opportunity. Like, this guy's worked on Lion King and
Yeah,
Pocahontas and what have you,
yeah.
and now he's saying, "Oh, have you tried this stroke, or try looking at that detail?" But he said, "Diamonds polish diamonds," which I thought was
Oh,
like a really lovely phrase, right?
yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and the added piece to, and I don't mind sharing this, and I know that you and I have spoken about this before, but the added piece to that opportunity that you gave me, you didn't know at the time where I was mentally. I was in a very, very dark place. And that opportunity that you gave me something to focus on, to pull me out of where I was, to say, okay, there's an opportunity here, there's something happening here, and I can put all of my energy into that, and come out the other side of that. So,
Mm.
quite apart from the opportunity on the work front, I will always be grateful to you helping me out of that, unknowingly helping me out of that hole.
Well,
Um,
hopefully you came out on the other side. It seems that you did.
I mean, we're like this as humans, right? So, but yes.
Well, look, everyone, listen. I know people that are, a lot of people see in TV and in top tech companies, and you look at their lives and you think, oh my God, it must be amazing, right? And but deep down, when you know these people personally, it is not the case, right? I mean, everyone has parts of their life that is not amazing, mine included, right? And it's more how you live with that adversity, how you adapt, right? And it's so much easier to say that and than actually do it. But most people I know are able to kind of find something that they're passionate about, and sometimes it's timing. Sometimes it's the way the universe says, "Okay, I'm going to put this in front of you right now because it's whatever the time, and let's make it happen." Whatever energy within our projected consciousness that makes us here. Sometimes it gives us these weird opportunities, right?
Yeah, I'm 100% in that. I think there is something to all of that. There's something to the universe rewarding you. There's something to you getting back what you put into the universe. There's something to that sort of
Right.
whole power of
You should have a
manifestation.
conversation with first. Manifestation, consciousness. Do you know your consciousness does not live in your brain, right? It doesn't come from your brain. It's projected in there. But that's a whole other conversation.
Oh, tell me more. I'd love to know. Tell me.
That's a tough one. No, it's that's its own podcast. Um,
Right.
no, but it's one thing that I'm very passionate about is understanding, human consciousness, right? Where it comes from, how it works, how ultimately it ties into society, this world. I mean, you heard people like Elon talk about when assimilation, all this kind of stuff, right? What makes sense? There's other people I know that are pretty religious. In fact, I have this great meeting I do almost once a week, and I meet with a pastor, and absolutely phenomenal guy, leads a church right here in Arizona. And then my other buddy, Gary Knutson, who was an ex-NFL player, but he also runs an agency, right? And super sharp guy. So the three of us meet for coffee on a Thursday morning, and at the same coffee shop. And all we do is we talk about existence, right? So I come from the science, you know, universe. I understand the speed of light, very well, and how that equates to, the real true size of the universe. Where most people think speed of light is, if you go in the street, how fast is speed of light? Most people will say 2,000, 10,000 miles an hour. So their view of the universe is then very small, because, speed of light is 186,000 miles per second. It means we can go around the Earth 7.5 times in 1 second, right? So, and the sun, to get there, it takes us 8 minutes, 49 seconds to get to the sun at that speed, or 150 million years at that speed to get across to the other side of our galaxy, our galaxy is just one of a minimum of 2 trillion galaxies, of which each galaxy is much further apart than the size of the galaxy itself. And It's just the first dimension of our universe. So the point is that we live in a big place. And then you've got people that are very religious and they believe in the Bible and they believe in exactly the story of how we got here. So we have these insane conversations, very respectful, not trying to shut the other one down, but trying to ultimately comment everything from like, okay, what's the latest with AI? What's the latest with consciousness and science? What's the latest with, religion and what people believe in and how it's affecting, where they think the earth and humans are going. So we have these very insightful conversations every Thursday, which are the most awesome coffee meetings. And imagine you can have that with people from all different angles. And sometimes we invite other people along. They've got their own point of view. But it's ultimately, what I've noticed is all of those conversations tend to traverse into the same delta. That they've just got different ways and different stories of getting there. But what it all translates down to is that we're fucked.
And on that healthy note, in what sense? Like where everything is. Okay, this is really interesting because I've long been pondering the obvious notion that everything is cyclical, right? Everything is a loop, and so your posit that we're fucked means there is an end to that loop, or do you think
No, there's no end.
humanity comes out the other side of that?
So the reality is that, you have to, like, if you and I were going to create humanity, let's just say we could do that, right? And this is what we create, right? I think, we should be fired because what we intended to create didn't really work out for so many millions and billions of people. I mean, it's awful. So you've got to ask yourself, okay, what is the program? What is the math? What is the formula? You got to reverse engineer what this is and then try to figure out, okay, what would make this and why, right? Versus trying to just speculate what it is. I mean, just look at everything around us, how things work from plants to how even certain plants can communicate, to how humans communicate and the failures, the suffering, the bare joy, um, you know, the way things work, right? The way we may all care about what's right around us, and then we pretend to care what somewhere else where there's a lot of suffering, but we don't really do anything about it, right? So the way this is all set up doesn't really make sense from what we understand. So how do we reverse engineer this formula and then come up with what we think is the basis of what makes this work, right? So I think with all the tech and all the scientific papers that have been coming out recently, and over the past couple of years, from also military establishments, it's very clear, I think, from my perspective, that consciousness, for one, um, is not born in your brain, doesn't exist in your brain in terms of its own entity. I'm pretty sure from looking at all the quantum entanglement physics spectrum that I've been studying, that consciousness is ultimately a energy that is, let's, for lack of a better term, as the military says, it's holographically projected into the human brain, right? And so that's what we're doing here. What is this body, this avatar that you're in? Where do you go? Where does that energy of your consciousness go when your body dies, right? I mean, I can't tell you exactly where it is, but I guarantee you it's not nowhere. But the world as we know it, I believe, is not what we understand it is on a day to day. Absolutely, absolutely not. Now, I'm not saying for 100% sure it's a simulation. I think if it's anything, it's something far bigger and greater than a simulation. But the average human doesn't know because we are so limited to understanding physics, dimensions, and we live in this very flat world, so to speak. So our hypothetical of what it may be is based on our absolutely limited version of what physics really is, and the 99% of physics that we're really missing, right? God, what a ramble. I wasn't expecting this.
This is fascinating. Come for the design talk and stay for the
design. Let's go after consciousness, right?
Like, I've often wondered, there is that whole thing about the simulation and what have you. to me, it seems quite plausible that we're not in a simulation, but that we are all parts of a gigantic organism, that we all collectively make up some other massive thing.
Yeah, that's very hardcore belief of those that do ayahuasca, and folks that have been on these journeys, right? I think everything is absolutely connected into one being, and we're ultimately living different branches of that consciousness in different times. Sure. I mean, there's so much speculation, but you don't know. We don't know. I mean, look, there's definitely people I've met in my life that are interesting that definitely know certain things, right? They at least they believe that way, and they've seen certain things. I mean, I'm a pilot, so I fly a lot. I think we talked about this before, and I've seen my own stuff in the sky, flying from things going from one side of the sky to okay, that's not possible, right? And I know other pilots, same thing. So look, the fact is, what's fortunately very mainstream today. And when I started doing websites and design, before I started fantasy, my main thing was building websites, and they were the original ones was the moon landing. It was the face on Mars. It was this is back in 98, 99, and it was conspiracy theory type stuff, right? Because I found it was super super fascinating and interesting. But the reality is today, a lot of these conspiracy theories are now finally coming to light. I mean, we all know, and it used to be very taboo to talk about things like UFOs and UAPs and things like that. And today it's pretty much a no-brainer, right? If you look at all the military footage stuff people see, there is absolutely no way that we do not have, you know, conscious plasma beings in the shape of orbs or lights, whatever, somehow floating around, which is not very accessible to the public, right? Now, where are these things coming from? Are they coming from another dimension, different space, or are they coming from within Earth, that have been here many, 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 many years? Don't know, but it's very interesting. And I tend to spend a lot of time online looking at those topics and consciousness. Yeah.
Mm. That's just
Just, I
fascinating.
think I'm not on dribble or what's the coolest UI designs. Now I'm in a totally different spot.
I and I think there's, this is a absolutely fascinating. I mean, it's a fundamental question for us as humans. We've been asking this right from the year dot, like, where have we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? What's going to happen? And you're right, like, none of us ever know. But I do feel uh, that there is clearly far more than to know than we know right now. And
Right.
I don't know if I want to know either, you know?
Well, it's also like, I mean, just think about humans, right? Honestly, I would say humans suck. If humans were a product, right, of a race, I would probably hopefully we rank one of the lowest, because most human interactions out there are not the best. Obviously the way the world is, it doesn't make sense that we're that evolved yet. And I'm sure 100% there's great humans out there, but they're few and far between, right? So, what we are is what we are. We're nowhere near, I think, as interesting or as good as we should be. But to kind of pivot to design from that perspective, and AI and work in the future with humanity. I mean, think about it. If you and I, Adam, we're in a spaceship and we're going around the universe, and somehow we had the ability to go through our galaxy pretty quickly, where we bend space, and we're able to, oh, here's Earth. God, Adam, this looks great. Look at it. It's green, blue skies. Look at all those trees. Let's go down there and take a look. This could be a great place for us to live for the next 2 or 3 years or 200 years, whatever. So Adam says, yeah, Dave, let's go down. Let's go down and check it out. So we go down, we land, and we see, my God, there's oceans, there's all this amazing stuff, and we meet a couple of people and we said, listen, hey, we look like them. So they're not scared, and they're like, hey, where are you guys from? And we said, well, we're from wherever, planet Zork. And, they're like, brilliant. Welcome to Earth. This is Earth. welcome, it's raining, but hope you have a lovely stay. We said, we listen, we do want to stay. Adam and I have been looking for a place to hang out and stay for a couple of centuries. What's it like here? And they blab off a couple of things. And we said, well, what does it take for us to stay here? What's the cost? And they're like, well, we have these things called years. There are 365 days. We have weeks. There's 52 of them. And in those weeks, there's 7 days. And in those 7 days, 5 of those days, you have to go to work. And then there's 2 days off. We're like, what? What are you talking about? You're saying that if I come to live on Earth, right, Adam and I, we're going to be working 5 of those 7 days. It's like 70% of our time. What the? You and I are like, we're out. We're done. That's not living, right? So it makes no sense. So the whole concept of humanity and how we are after this industrial revolution, how we work today, obviously is shit. It doesn't make sense. We don't have time to kind of really spend time with our kids, evolve them, go on experiences with them, be in nature with them. No, this is not it. It doesn't make any sense. So fortunately, with the arrival of AI in the future is going to come with people spending more time with their kids and their kids being more active, having more friendships, more communities. So I think part of the future of design and being super creative is going to be those that are going to come up with ways and communities for children and families to thrive in areas that are not predominantly where mom and dad are in the workplace contributing to the gross domestic product for the country. And the kids are not stuck in school and a babysitting service, so mom and dad can be out and work, right? So humans need to live, and it's not school, it's not work. Sure, we want to be doing projects that we're passionate about. Humans, that's very, very important, especially for people like you and I, Adam, and probably most of your audience. But the future creativity, I believe, is going to be around how we set up societies and ecosystems where mom and dad are more at home because they don't have the jobs as much, and the kids don't need to have that education at the level where it's 8 hours of fluff a day, right? So it's more about traveling, do more experiences, right? So coming with technology, I mean, I spoke to Elon a couple of times about this, where I've been trying to convince him, to do drones, and his answer wasn't what I expected. So there's still an ongoing conversation, but I believe sooner or later that humanity will change dramatically once the drone arrives. Because when the drone arrives, it means that we can travel much further and go to places much more conveniently. Let's look at it this way. If we only had the horse right now, communities would be much smaller and tighter because we can only travel so far, right? You wouldn't have this thing where I can drive 8 minutes. No, the cities would be tiny, right? And there'd be more cities, but tiny. But because we have the car, cities are more spread out, particularly in America, where there's bigger freeways, we can get further in places and so on. But when we have the drone, it means that my 8 minute ride from this house to the restaurant or the hospitals or schools, whatever it may be, can be at least an hour drive away, right? But it's in the middle of nowhere right now where the land is cheap and there's no buildings, there's no water, there's no ecosystems. And all that's going to be self-contained in the future. And in not the distant future, the near future. So that's going to be pretty interesting. So when that is done, there's going to be ecosystems out there that have to supply and work for those cultures and those towns that pop up, towns that are going to be full of families and kids that are not going to be in the workplace 8 hours a day or in school. And what are the creative activities and things that these kids and families are going to do and these communities? So that ultimately is going to be some of the interesting stuff ahead of us. How do we create ecosystems and tools to support that future? So I know it's a little bit ahead of time. It's not tomorrow, but the minute that drone is announced, the minute your real estate and all your fancy little cities is going to plummet, because people naturally want to move from a tent to an apartment to a house to their own resort, right? I mean, people love going to resorts, right? And everyone's stuck in these little houses next to each other. But everyone always wants to expand, but they can't because they're limited because of real estate. But as people move outside the existing ecosystem, they're going to have a lot more space and they're going to have their own, let's say, resorts. So there's going to be a lot more for them to do in nature. And you're probably also going to see a change in terms of where people live. They're going to move out of colder climates and move into probably what slightly warmer climates so they can be more outdoors. So designing experiences and stuff like that is something I'm excited about. I talk about this with friends pretty regularly about, how do we plan for the future? What are our kids going to do? Because people often ask me, well, what should my kids do in school? What should they be? And I'm like, well, not a lawyer, not a doctor, not any of that. But what they should be is an adaptive mother effer, right? That can manipulate everything possible in the most positive way. But creativity is going to be at the center of our future, right? How do we ultimately, create an insane ecosystem around our future living conditions? That's going to be interesting. Sorry for the
Mm.
pivot, just throwing it all out there.
Oh no, I love it, and there's a hell of a lot of hope in that. For someone who started that by saying we're all fucked, there's a hell of a lot of hope coming out of the other side of that. To me,
Mm,
is what I'm
mm,
perceiving, and I
mm.
love the idea of off the back of everything that's happening, we've got, roughly speaking, two ways to go. One is the kind of Disney Wally, we're all on a spaceship lying on space lounges whilst robots clear up the mess that we've made down here. Not particularly interested in that one. And two is, like you say, everything is automated to the point where it frees us up to do the important things, spend
To
time
be
with the ones
human,
that you love. Like,
to be human.
yeah, to be human,
Yeah.
exactly.
To live on this planet. Because going to work 5 days a week, working in some factory, doing something you don't want to do, not spending time with your kids, you know. So I do that. I slowed down working at fantasy quite a while ago, and I'm my full-time job today, believe it or not, is a go-kart mechanic. And that's what I do every day, where my son is 11 and he drives go-karts for the last year, outdoor go-karts to go 74 miles an hour. And has come extremely far, driving with some of the top kids in the United States. And, right now he's about to join a top racing team here. And not go pro. He's too young for that, but semi-pro, if you will, right? As we kind of position to go in a faster car now, and but that life is something I'm doing 5 days a week with him. I am literally, we'll go to the track, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we'll come home at 10 o'clock at night. And I'm at the track when he's out there driving. I'm working on the cars. And he comes back off. I'm looking at all the data with him. We're going through all the analytics, and then we're changing things, right? And it's no longer a spectator sport where you see your kid for an hour or two a week doing soccer, or whatever it is. You're in there doing stuff. You're fully invested, right? So, we go travel racing together. We're off to Tucson next week. We're going to be there for 4 days. We've two big national races coming up that we hope to do well in. We have a whole pit crew. He's got exercise regimes, fitness stuff, diet stuff, all to be this kind of next generation athlete. And when it comes to driving, right now, if he wants to be a Formula One driver, of course he does, but I don't give a shit if he doesn't get there. It's more about this journey together as dad and son. And when I was a kid, my dad was working all the time in the factory and, leading logistics um, in a company in Dublin. And, I was at school and you didn't see the guy, right? So you didn't see him that much there. Speaking of my son, here he is. What's up? I'm almost done, yeah, in a while. Why? You miss me? Do you want to come say a quick hi? Come on, come here, come over here real quick. Say hi to Adam. Hold on, he's coming. I was telling Adam about your go-karting.
Hey man, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
What's your name?
I'm good.
What's your name?
I'm Adam.
Oh, I'm Maverick. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Maverick.
What's going on here? Did you spill
Oh, yeah,
some?
I spilled one on myself.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
I was telling Adam about your driving career.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, very intense. Are we going to the track tonight? Okay. All right. All right. I'll be done in a few minutes. I love you. Okay. So, yeah. So that's life, and it's totally different than fantasy when I'm there and you're literally on the computer and you're giving it everything, right? And um and you're at fantasy and doing creative stuff, you're trying to be as competitive and push the bar and be innovative as possible. So honestly, I have found the same thing, but with my son doing go-karting. I've always been passionate about driving when I was younger. I used to build wooden go-karts when I was a kid, like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And in this full circle, now I'm out there working on his Rotax kart, which is this insane fast go-kart that's, pro racer stuff, right? And it's like everything I can do to get one extra tenth a lap in a 57-second lap. What can you do to get an extra tenth? Because the top 10 kids in America, when they're out qualifying, they're all within 2 tenths of each other, and so it's working with him, getting there closer, closer, closer. And it's like the same thing creatively. What can you do? What can you fix? How can you be innovative? How can you get around this stuff? What can you do together to work as a team, to be super passionate? And he inspires me because he gives it everything. He's got a natural talent to drive. And he's been doing it since he's 3 on these electric Segway go-karts I used to have in the office. And so today, that's where all my passion is. That's where my talent is. And it's the exact same, Adam, as what I had at fantasy. It's just, I'm just in a different medium.
Mm. I love it. And I love that bond that you're developing with him and the ability for you to have that time with him. That is what life is about, right?
It is, right? That's it.
As much as we love work, like that's what it's about. I know we're coming up on time. I have 2 very, very quick questions.
Yeah, go.
First one is, what would you hope people listening or watching this episode take away from it?
I don't have necessarily a hope. I mean, there's so many podcasts out there, right? So I don't necessarily have a hope they take something away versus they might find a little sparkle in something, right? It's not that I'm out there of some big inspirational icon of like, oh, just follow what David Martin says or does, right? But obviously I've been successful in terms of, getting opportunity to work on amazing projects over the years with fantasy and, spearheading a lot of how the internet and operating systems look today, right? We've had a massive, massive impact on that. And, but ultimately, what it all just boils down to, it's more of my son was listening to this. What would he get out of it? And it's more, I guess, find things like life is more like about passion. Otherwise, it's just kind of it's not really interesting enough to call it, humanity. I mean, I know we've ups and downs and we've all this kind of stuff that goes on in life, but if you can't find stuff in it that you can excel at and shape things with and leave a mark, you're just breathing air and you're wasting it for the rest of us. That's terrible. But yeah.
I love it. We've reached the final question. It's the same final question for every single guest that comes on the show. Are you, David, awaiting approval?
Oh, that's a great question. Typical you, Adam, will have that question on your show. Am I waiting approval? I guess, I'm sure just waves, as you say, you go through and you feel sometimes dynamically you may need approval from certain things in life or people or scenarios. I don't think it's something that's always there. Like it's like a frequency that just stays on. I feel that frequency goes up and down and changes in bandwidth. And out of that comes the feeling of maybe some approval, maybe it's something else. There's other things that come out of that people feel that they need or they're waiting for. I mean, the answer is I don't know. And the more I go through life, especially the more I spend with Maverick and my daughter Phoenix and going through experiences and seeing the value and how important, my lessons in life and how I can help shape theirs and set them up for success. it's more what fluctuates is the purpose than the approval. If that makes sense.
Mm,
You know?
yeah.
Um, I mean, approval is maybe there for people that feel they don't have the purpose or haven't found the purpose. So then they look, oh, well, what's the approval? You know? But if you've had the purpose, and then I'm sure if you get certain purposes done, then maybe you flip, oh, now I need approval or to be approved or to be whatever it may be.
Mm,
I don't know. I mean, I'm 48. I still feel like I'm 28. I feel that, another 10, 15 years of going through things with kids or experiences with people, or dealing with just the news of technology or how things work or wars or whatever it may be, um, everything's going to change you and adapt you, right? But I think the world is going to get very interesting over the next couple of years where it finally becomes public that we're not alone in this little tiny universe that we live in. And consciousness is not what it seems. As people get outsmart the kind of bubble we've been trapped in. I think that's going to be the most important thing to prepare your kids for,
mm, mm.
and that, so I think purpose is going to be the most important thing you've got to find versus approval. Yeah.
Love it. David, like as ever, as any conversation I have with you, it's been an
Yeah,
absolute.
you always have good news on me.
Yeah. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, anytime, man. I've always loved talking to you. Always been so impressed with who you are as a human being. And it's one of the reasons why, look the microphone there. That's one of the reasons why, it was easy to say yes to you for this because, I've always had this thing where I could tell your energy is just a real fit for anyone that wants to work in the space. So thanks for inviting me on, Adam.
You're a gent. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, we're a gent. All right. Best of luck to you and your audience listening. Hopefully there's something in here that wasn't too wacky, but yeah.
That's brilliant. Thanks for tuning in. If you're feeling stuck or want to think out loud about where you're heading, remember that you don't have to figure that all out on your own. I offer a free 15-minute conversation to anyone who wants help figuring out what's in front of them. Whether that leads to us working together or not doesn't matter. What matters is that you have someone in your corner, even if it's just for those 15 minutes. Head to growwithadamjennings.com and book your call. I'd love to hear from you. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the show so that you don't miss the rest of season 3. There is some absolute gold coming your way. So until next time, keep creating, keep questioning, and above all else, keep going.